By Claudio Magrini. Claudio Magrini is a professor at the Universidad Portales. He will give a little bit of an umbrella of what is the work of these more practitioners-based panel that we will have here. And he will introduce each of the speakers as well. After that, we will have our second keynote of the day, which is our dear friend Alfredo Ramirez. And I think that's it. So if we are ready, which I'm not sure we are, Claudio, are we? No. Okay. See? Okay. So I leave you with. Okay, I leave you with Claudio Magrini. Thank you.
Today I have the honor to introduce very esteemed colleagues, but I also have the obligation to present the landscape vision that we are developing in our master program. So I try to master this delicate balance by adopting the contributions of our guests, especially those related to a territorial approach and what we could call an Andine landscape theory as a guideline for our own academic and professional research. Nicanor Parra, a very famous Chilean poet, once said, "We believe to be a country, but the truth is that we are merely landscape," to stress out the importance of landscape for the local idiosyncratic and the Chilean identity. Raúl Zurita, another famous Chilean poet, professor of our program and actually invited professor at Harvard, subscribes this thesis but goes a step further. Chile, before being a nation, was a poem, La Araucana. This poem was written by Alonso de Ercilla in the second half of the 16th century, and by describing the native landscape of Southern Chile, he created the imaginary framework for people in Spain to visualize a country which still didn't exist. So landscape was not only the lie or the vehicle to found a nation, but also the colliding stone where the imaginary ideals of the conquerors shipwrecked with the real local conditions. So from its European origin, the Andine landscape has to carry the burden of these two opposed forces. Marcelo Vila, an Argentinian architect and author of significant parks in Buenos Aires, was the first that highlighted me about this problem. He used to say that the abstract grid for city foundations fixed in the laws of India worked very well in open and plain land, but that it collapsed each time that it has to deal with geographic elements, like rivers and hills. In fact, still today, our legislation doesn't have the legal tools to manage and deal with them in urban planning. And we're still waiting that landscape issues will be included in our constitution. Not different is the situation in Lima, Peru, where its pre-Columbian archaeological sites acts as geographical elements, producing a lot of problems for urban planning and to the extending city. Jean-Pierre Cruz calls them urban black holes, and his exposition will show us his ongoing research on this battlefront. Jean-Pierre is important to us also for his theoretical contribution, and his thesis towards a Peruvian landscape realized at our master program. He proposed two interesting points of view. First, by recovering the pre-colonial territorial notion of natural regions formulated by the Peruvian geographer Javier Pulgar Vidal in 1938, conceiving the landscape not as three horizontal lines parallel to the ocean, costa, selva, and sierra, as imposed by the Spanish conquerors, but as a multitude of vertical lines perpendicular to the ocean, permits a coherent territorial planning and administration, because the resulting natural regions, 8 in the case of Peru, includes the maximum biodiversity, with obvious economic and social benefits. Jean-Pierre's second theoretical contribution consists in having applied the principle of the French geographer and landscape theorist Augustin Berg to the Peruvian landscape, to discover that they apply perfectly, and so contradict Berg's thesis that only Western, as to say European, and Oriental cultures are landscape societies. The result, a system for the Peruvian landscape based on the reciprocal caretaking between people and nature. Although not present today, I cannot forget to mention the contribution of Teodoro Fernandez, especially if I want to expose the Chilean theoretical highlights which touched us and influenced our practice. The remodeling of the Park Quinta Normal in 2010, realized together with Danilo Martic, permitted him to formulate the thesis that this park, in its origin in 1841, was a laboratory for the central Chilean territory. It was Santiago's first urban park, and its ideator, the French naturalist Claudio Magrini, conceived it as an agricultural park with which landscapes later has been exported to the productive countryside and used to structure the rural development. If this thesis is true, it's an important witness of how urbanity influences the constitution of landscapes that often we believe to be natural. In any case, this simple idea still treasures a lot of potential to be discovered. Personally, I'm attracted by this territorial approach and also coincide with Teodoro's philosophy that the challenge of urban parks, as he states it, is for people to discover geography and to contemplate it. Another important contribution of Teodoro Fernandez was to visualize the Andine hydrologic system. I saw it once in one of his conferences, but there I found that his drawings, so I had to sketch it again for this presentation. When one looks at conventional maps of South America, usually only the big rivers on the east side of the Andes are emphasized. The drawing of Teodoro instead pointed out the rich and dense water system on the western side of the Andes, a system not made of rivers but of torrents, a water flow that isn't soft and continuous but harsh, explosive and intermittent. This recognition has deep implications. Not only it multiplies infinitely the kind of landscapes associated to it, but also implies a different urban management with this water logic, a knowledge that still is very incipient. Suggestive and open to contemporary and creative imagination is an ancient map of unknown author that represents the Chilean water system as a territorial barcode. I believe that is under this territorial approach that one has to read the project The River That Is Not from Luis Callejas, which ignores the urban canal to dedicate his efforts and resources to the water management and the decontamination of the quebradas, a geographical unit of the Andine morphology for which I still can't find an equivalent translation in our languages. The quebradas are an essential expression of our landscape features, and it's only by understanding the profound structure and the logic that landscape design or urban planning makes sense. The territorial approach and the cooperation with geographer is also of fundamental importance for one of the lines of research of our master program, where we explore nature-based solutions to deal with natural and human catastrophes, like that occurred in Valparaiso in April 2014. Considered the biggest urban fire in Chilean history. Our proposition is to work with humidity, one of the three climatic variables, wind and temperature, the other two, that have a fundamental incidence in these periodic outbursts. The result, a master plan which tries to maintain in the territory a rate of humidity over 30% by utilizing a set of strategies like capturing fog and duplicating water surfaces, or reintroducing native woods to replace the exotic pines and eucalypts, which are very aggressive in soil erosion and in nourishing fire. The desire to scale these strategies from territory to the urban area moved us to work with one of Valparaiso's drainage or catchment basins, called Quebrada de Jaime. This scale taught us that instead of accumulating water, like we thought it should be, we have to infiltrate the water into the granitic rock in order to nourish the natural water supplies. The reason lies in the geological structure of Valparaiso and the resulting logic of water drainage, which is not superficial but operates by capillarity. It's a research that for its complexity is still ongoing, and one of our next challenges will be, among others, to find solutions for the accumulated sand, due to the hydric infrastructure that divides the sedimentation from the water to be canalized under the city. What can be the potential of a beach in the middle of the quebrada? Is it possible to invent a new public space? These are some of the questions we want to answer in the close future. Of interest for our research is also the project of Rodrigo Pérez de Arce, he realized together with the Desert Center of Atacama. In his fog center, in his fog garden in Alto Patache, a hydric infrastructure that captures and collects fog water, he studied the possibility of infrastructure to exceed immediate functionality and to create an atmospheric place with an aesthetic in concordance with the arid landscape. His preoccupation and interest for arid territories covers all the scales. So it's one of the few that studies the influence of small urban landscape elements in arid towns. Inspiring is his article, Santiago Arid Zone, an Architecture of the Shadow, where he reconsiders the meaning of the tree in relation to the city and its climate. Of the same tenor will be his exposition about the urban fence. Also his father, Mario Pérez de Arce, played an important role in the landscape formation of Santiago. He was the first one to visualize green public spaces along the Mapocho River, an idea that was recovered in 2009 by a research team of the Universidad Católica and complemented with a continuous bikeway for the proposal Mapocho 42K, which actually is being implemented by the local governments. A similar project of landscape and territorial approach has been promoted by another team of the Universidad Católica called Santiago Cerros Isla, denoting with their name the interest for the island hills, interrupting the plain urban surface. These islands form a circular interconnected system and are associated to the two urban rivers, the Mapocho and the Maipo. These kinds of visions are important for urban planning for several reasons. Not only they stand for the importance of landscape approach, but also testify about the necessity of a territorial and a local understanding. These projects interact with the line of force at the geographical scale and deal exactly with those elements which challenge the logic of the orthogonal grid and the contemporary urban planning. Finally, it's thanks to these approaches that progresses are made to master the fragmentation imposed by legislation on the territory, because the different municipalities involved in the project has to find mechanisms to dialogue and to integrate their demands. A last consideration to this landscape approach, which is heading its way and begins to structure our city, has to do with representation. It seems to me that the last two important competitions to be implemented in the near future, there's a visible effort of visualizing atmospheres and to seduce with a poetic imaginary. So the green corridor of San Bernardo that will connect the island hills, the island Chena with the Maipo River, and the new Alameda Providencia, which explication I will leave to the here present authors. Thank you very much.